Hello and welcome to the Fintech Show. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at how payments are going through a wealth of changes due to automation, global standards such as ISO20022, and much more. And joining me on today's episode, I have three guests right at the heart of this industry change. First up, we have Roland Brandli from SmartStream Technologies. Now, I went to visit Roland over in Dubai, where SmartStream have a base of operations. It was very exciting hearing from Roland how SmartStream are using automation to really help institutions around the world really scale up. We also went to Milan, Italy to find out more from UniCredit, as I spoke with Raphael Barisaac to find out how UniCredit are looking at ISO20022 and automation themselves to really get ahead of the game. Last but not least, we had Michael Klopchic from HSBC Canada dial in to us in the studio to also find out how North American banks are looking at this challenge too. First up, we have Roland Brandli. So Roland, can you give us your full name, your job role, and for our audience who might not be aware, a bit of a background to SmartStream, please?
Well, my name is Roland Brandli and I'm a strategic product manager for SmartStream. SmartStream is all about control. So we've been around for 30, 40 years and we started off with delivering control to banks at the time. Obviously nowadays we do this enterprise-wide, but it's all about making sure that a product that a bank serves to its customers is delivered on time, in the correct quality, so that the customer can use it.
How have you seen demands for payments and digital payments change over the last 2 years? You know, you've mentioned obviously the anecdote of people just taking out an ATM, now they're contactless payments. But are you seeing consumers actually demanding more from their digital payments providers than before?
Well, I think there's just a basic reality to this, okay? And that is what has happened over the last 2 years is really it's served as a catalyst to move to digital. With that, the expectation of the client changes because the client now expects instant. Now, we've been living in a T+1, T+2 world for payments. No one complained. Now you can do a payment in 10 minutes. How do you explain to him if something goes wrong, that it takes 5 days to fix? It would be like Amazon literally saying, well, thank you for your order. We're going to get back to you in 5 days to tell you when we can deliver it. That has changed fundamentally, and we will have to adapt to the wishes of our clients. And they will be wanting instant, because now even the last people that used to insist on going to bricks and mortar shops like myself had to use Amazon. Even the last people who really wanted to use cash had to use contactless. We've all gone digital. It's a fact of life.
Can you tell me a bit more about how cloud-based technology can help operational efficiency for banks in their back end?
Well, the cloud itself obviously has this huge advantage of scalability. You only use as much performance as you need at that time. So if I'm processing a small amount of transactions, I only need small computing power. If I'm processing suddenly one day 300,000 or 3 million or 30 million transactions, for that moment, I use the resources from the cloud. As soon as the processing has finished, we drop it. Now, in a traditional environment, you'd have to have the servers there available to do that. So you're paying for those servers maybe that one day a year you would need to process 30 million transactions, but you're paying them all year. And that's a different cost basis. As well as the fact is, you know, you always constantly have to buy new hardware. In a cloud, you don't worry about that. The cloud takes care of that. Even the same way as when you're using SmartStream software, you would originally have to worry about keeping the software up to date, upgrading it. That's not your worry anymore. We take care of that. So all you have to do is really use it. And that makes it much more convenient and cheaper.
Rafael, for our audience who aren't aware, could you tell us a bit more about yourself and your role at UniCredit, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Raphael Barisaac. I'm in the group for almost 7 years, and currently I'm running the cash management franchise for the group in terms of business, working in the corporate solution division.
Incredible. Now, when it comes to corporate solutions, payments is often at the heart of a lot of what treasurers think about. But What have been some of the key trends that you've seen on the institutional side when it comes to payments changing?
I mean, it is quite amazing to see everything that is happening during these years in the world of payments. It is have been impacting in all the areas at the same time, and sometimes very difficult to grasp some of these changes, where they are really heading. If we need to have, I would say, the common conclusions is that, for example, on the retail side, we moved completely digital and online, meaning all the payments that we are doing in our private lives, we can do completely online. Instant payment today, for example, is completely instant. While on the corporate side, the transition is a lot more heavy, because they involved a lot of processes on the corporate side, and not necessarily having the payment automatic implies necessarily the impact on the treasurer, ERP, different type of systems. So, I mean, because while the payments have gone into automation in a quite faster pace, you still see that the entire treasury shop is still not real time. Then there is the element when we talk about which type of payments. When we talk about instant payment, SEPA world is online immediately. Then we see quite a lot of improvements, significant improvements in the cross-currency, different type of payments, multiple type of initiatives to streamline the payment flows. And there is, for example, where we see treasurers having quite an impactful for the fact that they are able to track in every type of high-value payment in the cross-border area, for example. For them, it's really important to make some of the payments, make sure that they are arriving pretty fast in a matter of seconds or minutes, and to know exactly in the flow where the payment is.
Now, Michael, for our audience who might not be aware, could you tell us a bit more about yourself, your role at HSBC Bank Canada, and what you guys have been working on when it comes to payments?
Absolutely, sure. So my actual job role and title is I'm the country head of global liquidity and cash management for HSBC Bank Canada. And for those of you that know the HSBC brand and name and network, we have two home markets, Hong Kong and the UK. And Canada happens to be one of the largest non-home markets for HSBC worldwide. So I have the privilege of leading a very significant business and a very significant team, and play an important role in helping our customers move their money globally.
Now, is it fair to say that the payments industry has been evolving rapidly? What's it meant for institutions like yourselves?
Well, I think the whole evolution is stemming from two things. So the technology and allowing us to embed better technology in our products, our customers adopting the technology, the central banks and the payment systems around the world modernizing, introducing real-time payments, payment modernization, which is all really serving to essentially speed up the movement of money and speed up the transactions. So when we do that, it actually opens up a whole new world of opportunity in terms of the types of products that you can develop and roll out into the market. It changes the way our customers think about how they manage money and how they move money.
Now, what's been driving these changes?
Well, the pandemic is really an easy one to cover off, and it's not. This all started before the pandemic. We just didn't turn on a dime because of the pandemic. Several things were accelerated, but they were already in the works. You can't develop and launch a brand new product and platform in hours, which is really what happened two and a bit years ago. Most corporations used to have dual signatures. Well, if we're in lockdown and we're at home, how do you get the second signature? And who's got the checkbook? Where is it? So you move to digital payments, you move to electronic payments, where then you can have the dual authentication, the dual approval, but it's electronic. And I can send that payment to you. You can authorize it on your end from your phone or from your laptop or from your iPad, whatever device you choose, and we can effect that payment. You being at home, me being at home. But this was all actually in the works beforehand, because it is the evolution with reduction in the paper, reducing the friction in the movement of cash, which friction being how slow money moves. The slower it moves, the less useful money becomes. So the faster you can make currency and payments flow, you reduce that friction, and it gives people more utilization of the cash that they have.
Can you tell me a bit more about how technology such as automation can really start help solving some of these challenges?
Yeah, so automation plays a lot of different roles within us and with our customers. If I think about where we've probably seen it play out best, is actually with the use of virtual accounts. And virtual accounts is a digital automated bank account. It looks and feels like a regular bank account, like we all would have, except it's actually not really real, it's virtual. And what it allows, though, is for a company that historically a barrier for them in terms of their overall reconciliation process and understanding, where their flows of funds are coming in and out of, a virtual account allows them to have clear line of sight of where payments are being received or payments are being sent. And so when you think about the work effort that companies were employing to take even if you go back years where people used to get paper statements and then they would take their paper statements and line by line, like we've evolved way past that, but you still have a reconciliation process that has to occur where people are seeing a payment come in and a payment go out of their account. And in the sort of pre-digital and the full-fledged real-time payments world, the amount of information contained on that line is limited. So as we automate, as we expand, as we introduce virtual accounts, you almost have an unlimited amount of information that can be captured, making the company's role, our job, so much easier at understanding who made the payment or who's the payment going to.
With that in mind then, how can institutions and how have institutions like UniCredit used automation to maybe reduce some of those manual processes in previous years?
All along, let's say, the past years, in various areas of transaction and payments, also in the payments per se, we have been implementing time and again different type of tools that have facilitated automated parts or all parts of our process. Example, self-prospect onboarding. Okay, for example, in Germany, last year we introduced an ability for a client, a corporate, not a retail, to completely self-onboard himself to any type of digital channel and service. This has been the first pillar. Okay, the idea is now to increment that to also to have our clients, that will be able to select which type of digital products they want to use and not to involve any type of manual process along the way, for example. Looking at the internal value chain, when you talk about middle and back office, for example, we put tools for our sales colleagues to always digitize their contacts with the clients, not to use any more different type of emails and payments using a market standard, for example. And it goes with many, many other examples, okay? There are really plenty. Eventually, when we talk about automation, we have to understand that it's not about the tool, it's about how you automate a process, okay? From the beginning to the end or close to the end. Because without changing the process, only taking in one part, meaning only that part, but not looking at the entire process, I think this is a simplification of the problem. And it's not real automation, because if I'm creating only a client bank digital channel, while in the middle and back office I'm doing many sub-processors which are not automatic,
there's not a lot of point.
It is, for the client point of view, he is doing things digitally, but then is somehow missing the point or the big picture. And in the past, I know that many of the institutions were going into the market with various solutions that were building in the client bank point of view, but looking internally said, okay, I don't know if it's going to fly or not. Why do I need to industrialize the entire way? Let's see what happens. I think that these times have changed.
Some of these financial institutions are multi-layered, very traditional, held back by legacy. How does SmartStream operate in that circle and really help them kind of become as quick as the new kids on the block?
Well, I think one of the things is obviously we have the experience when we're building software from the last 20, 30 years to know the pitfalls and to know the requirements. At the same time, we're investing a huge amount of money into products like SmartStream Air, which is a 100% cloud, 100% AI-driven technology, which is a game changer. But we're also taking our clients with on that journey. So we have other products where we also have legacy products. But the difference with a company like SmartStream is is we don't say, oh, here's a shiny new box, throw everything away that you had. No, we transition you. We take all that existing data, all that existing work and configurations that you've invested a lot of money in, and bring that into a brand new technology stack. And that's, something that is, I think, really important in terms of our pedigree. Yeah. On the other hand, we know there's a lot of efficiency gains we can make, but we're also very careful. So when we formed our innovation labs for the AI technologies, the brief was, we only build AI where we have a proven return on investment. Because some of the requests coming from people were, oh, I'd love an AI to do this, I'd love an AI to do that. And in the end, it saves them 2-3 days of work a year. Doesn't make sense. What you need is AIs that actually help them mitigate problems, help them mitigate issues. I think one of the most interesting things where we see AI also helping, apart from reducing things like manual work, is we have an AI that learns from user interaction. Now, that's great as a COO to see, well, it uses less manual touch points. But for me as a COO, what I'm really interested in is how do I keep my business sustainable? So what happens when someone who's doing a lot of manual work goes on holiday, gets ill, or post-COVID changes his job? I'm going to lose all that skill set. So to have an AI that learns from what he's doing creates for me a concept of being able to build a sustainable business that, should he be once sick or ill, I don't have any loss in efficiency. And that's a completely different way of looking at things. And I think that's where those technologies will help us. And again, lots of people worry about AI replacing their jobs. I don't think that'll happen. What it will do, though, is it will enable them to focus on the things that really need brain power, that really bring value. Yeah. And let's face it, I think everybody wants to feel valuable in his workplace. Yeah. And not just do manual things that anybody could do.
AI allows us to insert the bot into the system, look at why it has failed from a straight-through process, review it, generate an email message to the customer, ask the customer, is this legitimate, yes or no? And the customer responds, thank you, HSBC, for asking. Yes, it is legitimate. Please go ahead. The payment gets released.
I'd be really interested to see, so often institutions, banks have kind of had to do everything in-house. Are you going to start seeing institutions really start working with organizations, much in the same way that cloud did, brought in, for instance, third parties, or really start looking at machine learning, for instance, or automation to make your own employees or your back office a very different animal to maybe what it was a couple of years ago?
Most certainly. We are already using third parties, quite prominent solutions that use artificial intelligence, machine learning, data-driven, different type of flows. So we are already doing this, and it is here for several years. It's not something from the past months. To implement these tools requires, and maybe you will be surprised, first of all, cultural change in the organization. Again, it is not about the technology. The technology is an enabler to tell you, okay, with this you can do that in a different way, maybe better, maybe faster, maybe to do more with the same people. And it's not all the time is about less, it's more. It's to be ready for having more flow, not just to say I'm doing better. And what we encounter that is in most of the cases, the big change that you have to focus, apart from the implementing the technical and process tool, was really to focus on what we call the HR angle, which is the cultural change of the people. Is to explain to the people that are working in operation in different type of value chain that it is not about substituting something with someone else tomorrow morning. It is more about facilitating and enabling to do more. Okay, and in this respect, I think seeing this from the perspective of several years implementing this tool, let's say one of the conclusions that I can tell you that whenever we apply or deploy something like that in the future or presently, I put as much as emphasis on the HR angle as I do for the technical implementation.
But I think what we will see is generally all financial institutions re-architecting their back offices, because these are fundamental changes like real time, like cloud, like AI, like ISO20022, which fundamentally needs a completely different system architecture. And that's how we also attract the data scientists in our innovation labs, but also other developers, because now it's getting really exciting. Because now you're beginning to see people invest and wishing to deploy these technologies and having to actually do it. Where before, I think in the finance industry, we all talked about, the fourth industrial revolution and AI changing the world, but nobody was actually seeing it happen. Now we're in that phase where it's going to happen. And that's going to make it really exciting. Partially because you have a double challenge. It's not just the challenge of inventing something shiny and new. It's the challenge of also making sure that you can continue the existing business models, but improve them. And that's fun.
We can all develop platforms and we can develop tools and products, but unless we have an underlying common language that we all use, an HSBC product integrating with a corporate customer, and if they're on a different language or different platform than we're using, then all of a sudden the product's efficiency and the gains that the corporate can achieve through using that product won't be realized. You move into a common standard, a common language, a common platform, then all of a sudden you've got companies based in the UK, Canada, Australia, Hong Kong. It doesn't matter. They're all using the common platform, common language, and populate. Where's the payment going to? What is the message that you're sending to that financial institution or to that other counterparty? So that's the big aha moment for everybody. When payment systems were first developed, everybody developed their own payment system and they had their own language, which was fine because we were operating really in a domestic environment. The world's changed. A domestic environment doesn't really have the importance that it used to. Now we're a much more global environment and we want to be able to move money back and forth. And you look at HSBC with our global network, having a common language and a common platform across 60 plus countries will make it so much easier for our customers then to engage with their customers through our platform.
I think this is a landmark in the payments world of the financial industry because it's for the first time creating a standard that by having this standard, then you can think about having more close to real-time value-added services towards the client, but also internally. And I would say the big question is how the industry will invest on future solutions based on the ISO standard. Also talking to some of the colleagues in the other financial industry, they're also, it's not which idea to apply, but how exactly it will catch up. And then when you have a standard, you can start to think about building faster, for example, APIs in a startup. To think about data-driven products, going to the customer-facing point of view. To think about there are plenty of ideas. All the same, remember that by having an infrastructure standard, it means that you also need to look inside, meaning backwards, and make sure that it's not just this part that you're looking into streamline, that how you streamline also middle and back office activities and operations, as I mentioned. I think that only by looking at the end-to-end value chain, you can eventually extract the high value from having a standard, not just about looking about what can I do in this particular case to particular client segmentation.
Yeah. So where do you see the future implementation of these technologies now that we've heard about these changing demands in payments?
Well, I think if you can visualize and picture the old days where you had that ledger book and people would actually write in the transaction by pen or pencil, whatever instrument they wanted to use, in the future, that payment will be executed faster than they can fill out the line in the ledger book. So imagine that. And that is the difference that we're going to see. It is the speed with which transactions are going to be executed, the information that we're going to be able to generate and absorb ourselves, but then also deliver to our customers from where those payments are, invoice numbers, amounts, dates, whatever you need to build in there that just makes life easier for everybody. And then taking some of the automation tools to be able to extract all that information, whether it's the virtual accounts that I talked about earlier or virtual cards, which is another new product, to be able to leverage all of that to create a digital economy, digital payments, and effectively eliminating or reducing cash and checks in the system.
What is next? Well, we've obviously got SmartStream Air, which is having a huge impact, not only in the financial sector, but also in the corporate sector. There's a lot of new developments coming there, more AI. Our other products have all been fitted with those AIs. So that's one concept that we follow. We have the Innovations Lab who develops the AIs together with customers where we've identified business cases, and then we integrate them into the other applications. And AI will definitely be a huge focus for us. But I think the most important thing is what comes next is to be able to show our clients where they can go, the vision. And not just a vision that paints a pretty picture, but also the steps that you need to get there. And I think we're perfectly poised for that because we tend to, like a core banking system, operate enterprise-wide, but with the difference, just the nature of our business of reconciliation is we get all the loose ends that have to be tied up. So we have a deep understanding of that, and bringing that into our applications and bringing that to our client base, showing them a way that they can access software that will last them, especially in back offices, for a long time and meet the challenges they need. That's where we're going, and that's where we need to be in the future.
Now that's all we've got time for in today's episode. I just want to say a massive thank you to our guests, Roland, Raphael, and Michael, for joining us on the episode, because it's absolutely fascinating and it really is such a global change. So you can catch the rest of the series and much more over at ffnews.com and of course YouTube and LinkedIn, where you'll see me in the comments. Once again, thank you very much and goodbye.